Mr. Big. Mr. Big is a strategy mainly employed in Canada where the police create a fake criminal organization to lure the suspect. They simulate chance encounters and begin building a relationship with him, eventually offering him a well-paid job for minor crime, like delivering small amounts of drugs. These tasks become increasingly important and frequent, and the suspect is treated as a future leader in the organization. Finally, he is introduced to Mr. Big, the head of the fake organization, who is actually a skilled undercover interrogator. Under threat, Mr. Big informs the suspect of incriminating evidence provided by the police, and that this arrest could threaten the gang. He then gives the suspect a chance to clarify his situation, but to do so, he needs to know what the suspect actually did, and convinces him to confess to protect the gang. After obtaining the confession, the entire criminal organization is revealed to be a police operation, and the suspect is arrested. This tactic is generally used only as a last resort. It can lead to false confessions due to fear of Mr. Big, or the desire to maintain the luxurious lifestyle promised by the fake criminal organization. Good cop, bad cop. The good cop, bad cop technique, also called the Ma and Jeff technique, involves two people taking opposite approaches to the interrogated subject. One interrogator adopts a hostile tone, emphasizing threats of punishment, while the other takes a more empathetic approach, emphasizing reward. To convince the subject to cooperate, the good cop then defends the subject from the bad cop's threats and accusations. This makes the subject feel that he can cooperate with the good cop, is either out of trust or out of fear of the bad. However, this technique has two disadvantages. It can be easily detected, and the bad cop could alienate the subject. REID technique. The REID technique consists of a three-phase process. Interviewer starts with a fact analysis, then proceed to a behavioral analysis, and if appropriate, moves on to 9 REID interrogation steps. It is justified to proceed with the 9 steps only if the first 2 phases indicate the subject's involvement in the crime. The interrogation is an accusatory process and departs from the traditional question and answer format, instead taking the form of a monologue by the interviewer. In this monologue, the interviewer unequivocally communicates to the subject that the investigations identify him as guilty. Throughout the interrogation, the interviewer maintains a calm and understanding attitude to gradually make the subject feel more comfortable revealing the truth. This phase is conducted by the investigator providing various. Initially, the interviewer informs the subject of his potential suspect status and asks him why the crime occurred, thus giving him an early opportunity to confess. Subsequently, the interviewer attempts to shift the blame from the subject to others or circumstances, psychologically justifying the subject's action. During this process, the interviewer seeks to minimize the subject's denials until he provides an explanation for his behavior, which the interviewer exploits to approach understanding what the subject has done. He then uses nonverbal cues like eye contact or proximity to ensure that the subject is receptive and listening. Once again, interviewer provide psychological rationale for his actions. If the subject cries, the interviewer can deduce a sense of guilt for committing the crime. Afterwards, the interviewer presents an alternative question, offering 2 options on what happened, one more socially acceptable than the other. The subject is then guided to choose one of the options, usually the more socially acceptable one. Whatever choice he makes, he is admitting his guilt. If he does, the interviewer has him repeat it in front of witnesses and begins to verify the validity of the confession. Finally, the interviewer documents the subject's admission or confession. Minimization, maximization are 2 variations of the same strategy. Minimization, the interrogator presents crime as less severe, leading the suspect to confess in the hope of a lighter punishment than he originally thought. In maximization, on the other hand, the interrogator exaggerates the seriousness of the crime, cites the most severe penalties applicable, making the suspect believe that confessing could lead to a lighter sentence. This is also a controversial approach and could lead to false confession. Informal questioning. Sometimes police officers prefer to conduct field interviews without making arrests to avoid reading Miranda rights. This conceals a real interview behind a normal, informal conversation, during which the officer can still gather crucial information from the suspect. A similar technique is the change of scenery, where the interviewer and the suspect move from a formal setting, where the actual interview took place, and the interviewer asks questions informally to the suspect. This deceives the suspect into believing he is out of the scope of interrogation. Pause technique. The pause technique involves the interviewer's silence and maintaining eye contact after the suspect answers a question. This makes the suspect feel compelled to provide more information, and the more he does, the more likely he is to contradict himself, both with himself and with the evidence collected. Peace technique. The peace technique was developed in 5 phases after recognizing that psychologically coercive methodologies often led to false confession. It is more of a dialogue between the interviewer and the suspect, where the latter can freely provide his version of events before any evidence of discrepancies or contradictions is presented. The main goal is to obtain a complete reconstruction of events, rather than solely seeking a confession. First phase, planning and preparation, requires investigators to gather detailed information about the incident in question, including the subjects to be interviewed and the reasons behind such interviews. The second phase, engagement and explanation, aim to establish rapport with the suspect, asking him preferences about how to be called, and providing reassurances if necessary. The third phase, clarification and challenge, involves obtaining a complete description of events from the suspect without interruptions, allowing follow-up questions and, eventually, questioning his statements. If necessary, questioning his statements. The fourth phase, closure, involves summarizing the information provided by the suspect, ensure mutual understanding and verifying what has been discussed. The final phase, evaluation, involves self-reflection by the interviewer on the outcome of the interview, changes in the investigation resulting from new information, and potential areas of improvement in the interview approach. As the name suggests, this technique is based on a more peaceful approach and aims to build a collaborative relationship with the suspect. Rapid fire. Rapid fire. One or more interrogators start asking questions rapidly so that the suspect does not have time to fully answer one question before another is asked. This confuses him and makes him contradict himself, as he has little time to formulate responses. The interrogators then proceed to question him about these contradictions. Pride and ego down. This strategy involves attacking the suspect's sense of personal worth, which may prompt him to try to redeem his pride by cooperating. This method is particularly effective when used on suspected individuals who have shown emotional weakness or feelings of inferiority. But it also carries risks as, if unsuccessful, interrogator will have much more difficulty shifting to another approach without compromising his credibility. Repetition. In order to elicit a complete and honest response from the suspect, the interrogator continues to ask the same question and repeat the suspect's answers, causing him boredom to the point where he provides a complete answer in an attempt to avoid further questioning. Loaded questions. Loaded questions implicitly assume the truth of certain facts. If used with emotionally exhausted suspects, this strategy could lead to both involuntary revelations that reveal the truth and false confessions. Establish your identity. The suspect is told that higher authorities have identified him as a dangerous criminal with serious charges, prompt him to correct this alleged mistake by cooperating with the interviewer. In this way, the suspect may deny the charges and provide accurate information about what actually happened.